And we are rolling. Hello there. For those of you that have been loyal to Lightspeed Brothers, for those of you that are just coming in to look at a nice little news update, but a massive one at that, welcome. Hope you're all having a great day. And for those of you loyal to Lightspeed Brothers, I'm back. I know it's been a 3-month hiatus. Thank you for your patience and for just sticking along as subscribers. Really, the reason I haven't been posting is quite simply due to Corona. I haven't gotten any inspiration to write any videos from the movies I saw at home, and the easiest content for me to pump out is the reviews I write for going to the theaters and new movies. So, I really, didn't have that opportunity because the only movie I was able to see at home was The Invisible Man, and even then that didn't spark a lot of interest in me, and obviously, couldn't go to the movies to see any, big films that I really liked, or even indies that I really liked because theaters are all shut down. But a really interesting piece of news came out that I wanted to touch upon, and that is that AMC theaters will no longer play Universal movies after Trolls World Tour's on-demand success. And I read that from The Verge, credit to them. Of course, a lot of other media sites are covering this, however, that's just where I read it first. And I think this is interesting on 3 accounts. First, on the account of Universal and their business strategy throughout this whole quarantine and what they're going to do, and AMC, their business strategy, what's been going on with them, and obviously the third and final part, the whole debate that has been ongoing for years now between movies and cinema and going to the movie theater, the experience you get there versus streaming and having movies and content at home. So let's just jump right into it. First off, Universal. Universal, a couple of weeks ago, said that they would be releasing Trolls World Tour on VOD. And this was obviously huge because it was a huge kids movie that was going to make a lot of money in the theaters, but now it's at home. And AMC warned them not to do that. And Universal obviously did not heed their advice, went along with what they were going to do, and they released Trolls World Tour on VOD. And well, now they're paying for it. And I think this is interesting from Universal from a business standpoint. I don't think they ever would have guessed that AMC just would have completely banned them from playing their movies there, but they're basically losing the entire movie industry. And I say that because, when you say you're going to the movie theater, you're most likely thinking of AMC. Sure, there's Cinemark, there's Regal, there's a bunch of local theaters, but, there's really not a bunch of local theaters, they're really few and far between. It's AMC. It's AMC in damn near every single town you go to. If you're not near an AMC within like a 20-minute radius, that's ridiculous because the AMCs are just littered everywhere. And for Universal to lose AMC, the biggest movie distributor, well, not distributor, movie theater chain in the entire country, is just absolutely crazy. And for AMC, they're obviously losing something, but I think they're, putting forth an important precedent. And I hope that precedent is more important than the money they're losing. And they're basically saying, hey, don't go to streaming, don't go to VOD. It's important that we keep the experience of going to the movie theater alive, so come to us. And if you don't do that, if you don't follow the rules that we set, you're not going to get any of our money. You're not going to get money from the people that come to our theater. And, I think this is less of just a business standpoint, but the fact that Universal, one of the staples, a studio that has released so many staples of blockbuster cinema over the past 40, 50 years, it's now completely removed from the theater industry basically entirely. And by the way, I think that this may honestly be a Disney-Sony Spider-Man thing. I'm not going to fall for that again, make a video and not be cognizant of that. I most likely think that Universal and AMC are going to find an agreement in there somewhere. Who knows, maybe some sort of law or agreement is passed. But you look at stuff like Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, Jaws, E.T., Jaws being the first summer blockbuster of all time that basically started a blockbuster revolution after blockbusters went dormant since the development of TV in the 1950s. E.T. was the highest grossing movie in 1982, and it stayed that way for, well, actually no, it was beat till Return of the Jedi the next year. I believe so, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, the point is it beat the original Star Wars, and it was still a huge feat to be the highest grossing movie of all time. At its time, at any time. And so for Universal to have so many, cornerstones of making money at the movies, to have that whole legacy kind of being torn apart now because of Trolls World Tour of all movies, is just insanity. And, for AMC, this isn't great for them either because recently Universal has been a huge moneymaker for them. Films like the Despicable Me franchise and the Minions movies, you got Jurassic World, you got the Fast and Furious movies, and more importantly than them just making, money in general, we also have some, adult audiences and kids audiences in there. For Despicable Me and Minions and Secret Life of Pets and Trolls, you're covering the kids, and for Jurassic World and Fast and Furious, you're covering anywhere from like ages like 10 to 60, anywhere in between there. People that are interested in going to see big movies, and so for AMC to lose that is pretty massive. And I hope that the recent news reports in the past couple of weeks aren't going to hurt AMC, because if you haven't heard, AMC, there are a lot of reports in the media that they were going to file for bankruptcy, and I was actually going to make a video about that, but then I was like, this is kind of weird, and I don't really have a lot to say about it. But now it may factor more into the situation, because I think it's very easy for Universal to spin it like AMC needs them more than they need AMC. And I think it would be very easy to convince the American people of that because of how much the media has leaned towards saying that theaters are dying out and that streaming is the way of the future. And I'm not really sure why they do that. I'm not sure if there is a bias or that's just their opinion, but stuff like The Atlantic had a whole piece about how movie theaters are gonna die, that they're gonna become extinct, and that streaming is gonna take over. And maybe that was just a ploy to get viewers' attention and to get people to read what they're saying. But that still goes to show that in the media, somehow, some way, there's, an attraction towards saying that streaming is going to be the way of the future. And I forgot what I was saying there, but I wrote some more notes down, and I remembered what I was going to say. And that's, firstly, the whole idea of the studios going to band behind Universal or just sticking with AMC, the divide that's going to happen there. Because obviously there are two clear sides to this argument. Over here you have streaming, over here you have movie theaters. And two studios came to mind. First, Sony Pictures, and the second being Warner Brothers. Now, Sony Pictures, when I went to see Baby Driver 3 years ago, they had a little short at the beginning with Edgar Wright talking about how this was the superb viewing experience for the film, which is obviously awesome, but also really important because that shows a dedication to going to the movies. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, basically the most recent of Sony's really big films, built its whole marketing campaign around that, about 70mm and 35mm and IMAX and all that jazz. They even had YouTube videos about how Quentin Tarantino is making the film lover's dream film, that it's about a tribute to cinema and going to the movie theaters. And with Warner Bros., they do the same thing with Christopher Nolan's films. They talk about, all the different formats you can see it in, and how it's, such a big deal that you're going to see it at a movie theater. And even a lot of their recent blockbusters have been so cinema heavy, not only in the fact that they want to make a lot of money, but also that they want to be sort of high concept, and they want to be remembered like the blockbusters of yesteryear, like E.T., like Jurassic Park, like Jaws. And this is evident in films like Wonder Woman, in Blade Runner 2049, and in Mad Max Fury Road. Some of these recent blockbusters are especially concerned with having a legacy, with not just making a quick buck and get out of there, sort of, on the opposite side of the spectrum as something like The Mummy, which was released by Universal. And so I think that Warner Bros. And Sony Pictures have no chance of turning and trying to go the streaming route or backing up Universal, but we will see. And I'm just predicating that upon what they have shown me and how much that they have valued going to the movie theaters. But who knows? And of course, the big question mark is Disney. They obviously have shown more of an inclination to streaming than something like Warner Bros. And I think it would be interesting, per se, if, the Disney and Marvel went more of the streaming route. And I think it would be smart if Warner Bros. And DC tried to advertise themselves as more of the, movie theater favored company, and that you should go support them and not Marvel because of that. And obviously, Marvel is the biggest moneymaker in movies right now. So it'd be interesting what would go on there. But I just think as a whole it's interesting that, we're really getting into the thick of this whole debate of streaming and going to the movie theaters and the theater experience. This is, the most drastic measures that have been taken by any studio or theater chain thus far in the debate. And I don't know. I'm not, if you know me, I'm not as really anti-streaming as I may come off as. I think that streaming is great for films like Marriage Story. If you saw my review on that, I think that it's great for sort of these, low key movies that don't need to, get this whole marketing campaign and be released movies that can just be released at home. With that said, I feel as though that there's been a steady rise in bigger movies, and the fact that some of these theater chains and studios don't want to finance these movies for the theater, that they just want to do it for streaming. And that's something that was evident in The Irishman and all the media outlets covering Martin Scorsese's film. Like, Netflix was the lord and savior of the whole project, and that theaters and studios sort of left it in the dust, which I thought was very interesting. Once again, is an interesting trend in the media. And I just hope that, quite frankly, this sort of, I hope AMC wins, I guess, in simplest terms. I really don't know what to say. I hope that AMC and Universal find an agreement so we can get movies back in there again. But I hope that AMC is strict. I hope that they stick to their guns now, and that they're actually able to enforce some sort of rule on these production studios to make sure movies stay in theaters. Obviously, that sort of prevents the whole idea of having these smaller films go to streaming, but I think it's, important above all to preserve the theater experience. And quite honestly, I sort of feel an ethical obligation now to go see movies, because the theater experience and going to the theater is one of my favorite things to do in life. And so, to have the possibility of that being taken away, I now feel an obligation to basically go, more than one time a month. As for, other years, I obviously have gone, once or twice a month, maybe three times if it was a big movie month. But now I feel as though that I'm morally obligated to go see these films, because I don't want cinema to die out. And that's really all I have for today. So I would love to hear your guys, what you think would have been the best business decision, what you think is going to happen between AMC and Universal, who do you think was right, and how do you feel about going to the movies now? Do you feel as though that you have an obligation to go see movies? What's your position on the whole movie versus streaming debate? And that's really all I have for today. So thank you so much for watching, and see you all next time.